In this video, I'm going to show you a letter written over 150 years ago. And through this, we're going to learn about how English changes over time, how modern English is the way it is. There are actually a lot of great insights that we can get from looking at English from different time periods. All right? So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to give it a like. And now, let's get into it. The English language continues to change over time. I think it's changing very fast right now. As the language spreads around the world, it picks up pieces from around the world and kind of gets spread throughout, right? Meme culture is also there. Internet culture is also there. I think the English language is changing rapidly. And so it's interesting to reflect on how quickly it happens. From only, well, a little more than 100 years ago, we can see the differences. In fact, if you just go back to the 1980s and you look at a video of someone just on the street talking or interviewing someone, you'll see the way that people speak then is different from how people speak now. You'll see it immediately. Go back to the 1960s. You'll see it there too. And of course, it's different for different countries, but let's just simplify it to say, because I'm American, let's say, in the United States. Within the United States, American English, let's say, go back to any time before now and see if you can pick up differences in TV show interviews, documentaries about something going on in that time, the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. And you'll start to pick up things that people are saying that are just different from what you may be used to now or what you may be learning now. We're going to go all the way back to the Civil War and listen to someone reading a letter from a documentary, someone reading a letter. And we're going to pick out some of the words that they're using, talk about whether those are common or not. Okay, so let's hop over to this letter. This is a video of a letter. We could have just looked at the letter, but you know, I like to listen to it if we can. Okay, so we're going to be pausing this as we go along, right? And I want you to just pay attention to anything that you feel like doesn't sound like modern American English. And if you hear a baby crying, that's because there is one crying. But don't worry, someone's taking care of it. There's a baby carer taking care of the baby. I'm not just watching a video and letting a baby cry. I'm not the only person here. Don't worry, someone's on it. I don't know if you can hear it or not. I'm hearing a baby cry. All right, let's go. Honorable Manhood is this letter.
A week before the Battle of Bull Run, Sullivan Ballou.
By the way, this is the American Civil War. I'm looking down here. I'm looking at the video. The American Civil War. Okay, so this would have been, what year? 1860s, I guess, probably.
A major in the 2nd Rhode Island Volunteers wrote home to his wife in Smithfield.
July the 14th, 1861.
Okay, so here's the letter. 1861. Okay, 1861. Wow, okay. So, a long time ago. Let's see how different the language is.
Washington, D.C. Dear Sarah, the indications are very strong that we shall move in a few days.
The indications are very strong. So now we have to also notice something, or note something. Even, today, there's a difference between written and spoken language. Right? People write often in a slightly more formal way than they speak, right? I would say the gap between written and spoken language has become smaller. It used to be that there was a huge gap between formal written English and regular spoken English, as well as formal spoken English and regular sort of colloquial spoken language. But even though there's a gap today, the gap the gap during this era probably would have been greater, right? So we're already hearing a high level of formality that almost sounds like, well, you're just talking to your wife, right? When I text my wife, it's like, hey, what are we gonna have for dinner? Very casual texts, right? Married couples text each other and say, well, what are you doing? All spelled incorrectly, all lowercase, right? People used to write letters to each other. On the battlefield, a man writing a letter to his wife. My dear, this is very formal stuff. The indications are, whoa, this sounds very formal.
Perhaps tomorrow. And lest I should not be able to write you again.
Let's stop here. Lest I should not be able to write you again. Lest I should not. So first of all, this is antiquated English. The modern way to say this would be unless I am not, right? Unless I am not able to write again. Unless I'm not able to, instead of write again, we would probably say get in touch again, right? Unless I'm not able to get in touch again would be the modern way to say, in this case, kind of formal sounding written English, lest I should not. It almost sounds slightly Shakespearean, right? Again, totally out of date to use lest. Nobody uses it anymore. It's not common at all. Let's listen to that again.
Very strong that we shall move in a few days, perhaps tomorrow, and lest I should not be able to write you again.
And lest I should not be able to write to you again. And lest. Okay, here we go. Let's keep going.
I feel impelled to write a few lines that may fall.
I didn't even mark that one, but I feel impelled. Again, we don't use that so much at all in modern English, including written English. Impelled. I feel like I should, basically. I feel like I should do that. I feel drawn to doing that. I feel like I must do that. Okay.
Under your eye when I am no more.
I am no more means I'm dead, right? He's being realistic that he thinks he's being a little dramatic and romantic about dying. I think, I feel like when I hear this or when I read this letter, this guy's got a death wish for sure. He likes the romantic idea of dying, in my opinion.
I have no misgivings about or lack of confidence in the cause in which
I feel no misgivings and have no lack of confidence about the cause. No misgivings. So if you have misgivings, and you can use this word. This is a fairly formal sounding, but still relatively common word. If you have misgivings, it's like having doubts or concerns. I don't know about this. Maybe we should do it, maybe not. I have no misgivings means I have no doubts. I have no concerns. I'm fully confident in this. Where we're about to do a road trip, and I have some misgivings about the plan because maybe we're planning to drive, 800 miles a day, and I think that's too much, or something like that. I have misgivings about it for some reason. Maybe I don't think we've budgeted it correctly, or we're going somewhere dangerous. I don't know. I have some concerns, some doubts. He has no misgivings, no concerns, no doubts, right? Let's go back.
I have no misgivings about or lack of confidence in the cause in which I am engaged.
The cause in which I am engaged. So the cause is, one meaning of a cause is a thing, a movement that you support. Right? This is a cause that I believe in. Not cause in the sense of, the butterfly landing on the rock caused it to roll down the hill, but cause in the sense of a movement or a thing, an idea that you believe in, that you are behind. That is a cause, noun cause. Well, one of the meanings of the noun cause.
And my courage does not halt or falter.
My courage does not halt or falter. So halt means stop, pause. To halt, that's perfectly normal, natural English. Falter is less than halt. It's more like stumbling. Like if you were to walk along and you stepped weird on a rock and then you kind of went like that, but didn't totally fall down, you'd falter, right? Or when you're speaking, you're trying to talk, and then you try to say something, and it didn't come out of your mouth, so you're kind of faltering there as well, right? So halt or falter, he's very confident in the cause that he supports. He's a soldier. He's willing to die, right? He's saying basically, hey, wife, just want to let you know I'm probably going to die, and that's okay. I find this letter very weird, because this letter is held up as this, it's a sacrifice for his country. This man is, maybe he's very patriotic. Maybe I'm just a selfish person, but I feel like this guy wants to die. And he's trying to make it romantic with the letter.
Or I have no misgivings about or lack of confidence in the cause in which I am engaged, and my courage does not halt or falter. I know how American civilization now leans upon the triumph of the government.
American civilization leans upon the triumph of the government. American civilization leans or rests on the triumph. That means the success, the victory of the government. I think he's talking about, well, America at this point is less than 100 years old when he's writing this letter. It's pretty fresh.
How great a debt we owe to those who went before us through the blood and suffering of the revolution.
How great a debt we owe. If you owe someone a debt, you feel like you owe them. If it's very, very big, you would describe it as a debt. I owe you a debt, or I owe you a debt of gratitude. Those who came before, and when he talks about the revolution, he's talking about the Revolutionary War, in which America gained its independence from the British.
Triumph of the government, and how great a debt we owe to those who went before us through the blood and suffering of the revolution. And I am willing, perfectly willing.
But you have to admit, I mean, no matter what you think of this guy, he's very poetic. He's a really good writer, right? He's got a sense for creating drama. He doesn't just say, I'm grateful that the revolution happened and, I'm very supportive of the government. The blood and suffering of the revolution. He's really vivid with his language, which is very interesting. And he's clearly a great writer. I wonder how many drafts he went through. I wonder if he used ChatGPT.
Willing to lay down all my joys in this life to help maintain this government. Perfectly willing to lay down all my joys in this life to help maintain this government.
Lay down his joys, in this case, means sacrifice them, give them up, right?
And to pay that debt.
Pay that debt. Pay a debt means you feel you have a debt, pay it, you don't have it anymore. So the debt is to his people who came before, history, the government.
Sarah, my love for you is deathless. It seems to bind me with mighty cables that nothing but omnipotence can break.
My love to you is deathless. It seems to bind me with mighty cables that only omnipotence can break. So he's getting into the romance of his letter. So first he's saying basically, hey, listen, I'm about to die. Why? I love my country a lot. But I love you, and my love for you is deathless. Wow, deathless. Wow, that means even if I die, I still do. And he's bound with mighty cables like that hold a bridge up, a suspension bridge, that only omnipotence can break. Well, that would be something like God, something as powerful as a God. We often ascribe omnipotence and omniscience, basically ultimate power, ultimate knowledge, ultimate power in the case of omnipotence. Only the power of God could break these mighty cables that bind me to you, except my love for my country and my willingness to die for it. Being too harsh on this guy.
And yet my love of country comes over me like a strong wind.
There you go. My love of country comes over me. To come over me is sort of suddenly. Suddenly a feeling of dizziness came over me, swept over me, right? Or a sense of nostalgia came over me, swept over me. It's the sudden thing of, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, and then it's there, right? Cool mustache, by the way. I like the, it's got a nice shape, right? It's got like an upside down V going on here. And this guy's thinking, man, I love this lady so much, but...
and bears me
I'm not
irresistibly with all those chains to the battlefield.
I see. He's drawn to the battlefield.
The memory of all the blissful moments I've enjoyed with you come crowding over me.
The memory of all the blissful moments I've enjoyed with you come crowding over me. Wow. Wow. Blissful means, of course, happy, joyful, pure bliss. We often use as a noun. Pure bliss means perfect happiness.
I feel most deeply grateful to God and you that I've enjoyed them for so long.
Oh, I want to cover one thing.
Me. All those chains to the battlefield seems to bind me with mighty cables that nothing but omnipotence can break. And yet my love of country comes over me like a strong wind and bears me irresistibly with all those chains to the battlefield.
My love of country bears me irresistibly with all those chains to the battlefield. I've simplified this a little bit. To bear you somewhere is essentially, it takes me there. The wind is bearing him. What is the wind? The wind is his love of country. So he first says, hey, listen, wife, love ya, but my love of country, more. So the wind is this thing that's taking him, even though he has these chains tying him to his wife and how much he loves his wife, to wanting to serve his country in the battlefield, right? His love of his country. It bears me, pulls me. The wind, we often, or you hear in stories and things like that, the wind bearing someone somewhere, right? Often you hear that in mythology.
The memory of all the blissful moments I've enjoyed with you come crowding over me, and I feel most deeply grateful to God and you that I've enjoyed them for so long. And how hard it is for me to give them up and burn to ashes the hopes of future years.
How hard it is for me to give those up and burn to ashes the hopes. So this is a dramatic image. Again, note his usage of metaphors to create images. Now, this is just a commentary on writing in general. Yes, this is formal. Yes, some of it is kind of antiquated. We can tell it's not from, 1994. This is how people would write in the Civil War. This is very poetic writing with a lot of vivid imagery. So we have these images of cables and chains and wind carrying people, things, and omnipotence breaking them, and how powerful things are, burning to ashes. So he could just say, ending my hopes. He's saying burning my hopes to ashes. So basically saying, I have hopes for the future, hopes for time I could spend with my family, watching my children grow up, and yet my love of my country and my willingness to fight for my country burns those hopes to ashes, to nothing, basically. So that's a pretty dramatic and vivid, I think it's a very interesting image, at least, right?
When God willing. And how hard it is for me to give them up and burn to ashes the hopes of future years. When God willing, we might still have lived and loved together.
When God willing, that's something that you used to often, maybe sometimes still, sometimes maybe still see inserted. When, it would be when, comma, God willing, comma, we would see our children grow up, right? So that would be just saying, if God wishes that to happen, if that is the will of God, then it can happen. It's basically saying, hey, listen, I want it to happen, but only if God wants it to happen too.
And see our boys grown up to honorable manhood around us. If I do not return, my dear Sarah, never forget how much I loved you.
Loved? Past tense? I mean, yeah, okay.
nor that when my last breath escapes me on the battlefield.
See, this is where I start to think that maybe he's over-romanticizing death. It makes me think there might be something psychological going on. It's possible that it's because I personally cannot imagine placing country over personal stuff. I just can't. I'm sorry. That's just my personality. I don't, to me, the level of the country you come from, it's just like, yeah, okay, nice, great, but would I die for it? Personally, I can't even imagine it, my personality. No. I can imagine dying for some things that are very important, right? But I just can't process that level of patriotism. And I don't, maybe that says more about me than this guy. But at the same time, I do feel like he's kind of over-romanticizing death on the battlefield, right? It almost sounds like from this letter that he wants it to happen in a way, in a weird, perverse way. He's saying basically, when my last breath escapes me on the battlefield, basically saying, right as I'm about to die, I'm going to say your name. Okay. I mean, all right, I guess.
Nor that when my last breath escapes me on the battlefield, it will whisper your name.
He's got this romantic idea about war and battle, in my opinion.
Forgive my many faults.
Forgive
and
my many
pains
faults.
I have caused you.
Forgive my many faults. Faults means things that are wrong about you. Faults is a common word that we use today. I think probably now we would be more likely to use problems. Forgive my many problems. Forgive all of my. It's actually, instead of my many, now the more common phrasing would be all of my. Please forgive all of my problems or issues. Please forgive all of my issues. He's saying the same thing here. My many faults. Fault in this case, and not saying that's my fault to one thing, but my many faults, my many issues, my many personal problems. Maybe he gets stuff stuck in his mustache and it stays there for days and starts to smell weird. That would be a fault, right? And he wants her to forgive that. Forgive that.
How thoughtless, how foolish I have sometimes been. But oh, Sarah.
So I don't want to make it seem like I'm dismissing this. This is a powerful letter. It's beautifully written. It's amazing. I'm just trying to also examine the psychology behind it.
If the dead can come back to this earth and flit unseen around those they love.
If the dead can come back to this earth and flit unseen. Flit unseen. Unseen would be you can't see, right? Okay, but flit. Flit is like a butterfly or a little insect and how it flies. If you picture a butterfly going bloop, bloop, from one flower to another, bloop, 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 it's kind of flitting. It's a very kind of light motion or movement from one thing to the next. I flit, I float, right? I think that's a line from The Sound of Music. It's sort of this light flying movement that you would imagine a butterfly having. Well, okay, he's saying to flit unseen. He's saying if the dead don't totally die and they come back to this earth, then I will flit unseen. Basically saying I'll be right back here.
I shall always be with you in the brightest day and the darkest night. Always. Always. And when the soft breeze fans your cheek, it shall
When the soft breeze fans your cheek like a fan.
be my breath, or the cool air, your throbbing temple. It shall be my spirit passing by. Sarah, do not mourn me dead.
Do not mourn me dead. Do not mourn me dead. Do not mourn. If you see mourn like this, mourn means to have grief or sorrow, usually when someone has died. So if someone is in mourning, they're in a period where they are dealing with the grief as a result of someone passing away, right? if you say, I'm still mourning, I'm still experiencing grief, I still haven't emotionally recovered from this loss, right? That would be someone who is in mourning, or a mourning period, for example. Do not mourn me. Do not mourn me dead. This guy's not dead, but he's pretty sure he's gonna die, right? And he's writing this letter to say it, basically. He's saying, don't be sad that I'm dead. Okay. So he's saying, I'm gonna die, but don't be sad when I am. Basically, do not mourn me dead.
Think I am gone,
Think I am gone.
and wait for me,
And wait for me.
for we shall meet again.
Now he's basically saying, I think in the afterlife, we're going to meet again. So I think a very interesting, beautiful letter. We can see the level of formality is much more than we would see in a normal letter. People used to write each other letters, very romantic letters. One spouse would write to another and the other would write back. This is not a common practice anymore in the age of texting. There's a sense in which something has been lost in that because there used to be this norm of wanting to be poetic and romantic to your spouse in that sort of way. Now we do it perhaps in other ways, but in terms of writing, not so much. So there's something that I think has been lost in the form of how people used to communicate. I really like that there used to be this way of expressing thoughts and feelings in a certain style, which was very careful, very formal, often very poetic. In the case of a spouse, very romantically. In the case of a friend, in a very articulate and intelligent way. If you read some, old letters from the, let's say, 17th, 18th century, 19th century, you get this sort of sense of, wow, these people really put a lot of thought and care into these letters. Now I just send a quick email or a quick text. And so what is lost there? We can also see some of the language differences, right? Not just the level of formality, but some of the specific words and phrases that are a bit different, and the overall style, which might be a bit different as well. If you have any questions about any of these words and phrases, or if you want to share how you think maybe we express ourselves today, what that means, right? Does it mean that we're less romantic, or does it mean that we just express those same feelings in a different way? I would love to hear your thoughts on that. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And also get a free course, Natural English Conversations, in the links in the description.